welcome back to this week's episode of Check It Out, Carnegie-Stout Library's Adult Services Podcast. This week's episode features an excerpt from an interview that Amy did with Luke Vorwald that will be featured in a later podcast. Mike May will tell us a little bit about our online book discussion group that starts May 18th. Amy will tell us a little bit about some of the reader's advisory tools that Carnegie-Stout Library offers. And then we also have a couple of reader and listener submissions about what they have been reading and enjoying lately. First up, we have our librarian Amy telling us a little bit about the reader's advisory services that Carnegie-Stout Library currently offers.
Are you looking for a good book to read? Every Monday we start a Looking for a Good Book thread on Facebook. You can also fill out a book match form found on our website to get a more substantial list of personalized reading recommendations. To find that form, go to our website at www.dubuque.lib.ia.us. Click on Adult Services, then Recommendations, then Book Match. Answer the questions and we will send you a list with 5 to 8 reading suggestions. Here are some reader's advisory questions we've answered on Facebook over the past few weeks. Maybe you've had the same question, and hopefully our answers will help you discover a new favorite author or book. Chloe loves authors like Lisa Gardner and Lisa Scottolini, but hasn't found an author she likes who writes similar kinds of books. Thank you for the question, Chloe. Have you read Iris Johansen? Her Eve Duncan series balances mystery and thriller with a little romance. Start with Face of Deception. Another author to try is Laura Caldwell. She writes really solid legal thrillers due to her background as a lawyer. Start with Red Hot Lies, the first book in her Izzy McNeil series. You might also like Linda Fairstein or Harlan Coben. All of the titles mentioned are available as ebooks through the library's Overdrive collection. Corey says, my son has plowed through Harry Potter and the Percy Jackson series. What's next? Great question, Corey. These are both excellent series. Has your son tried the other books by Rick Riordan? Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard is loosely tied to Percy Jackson. The first book is Sword of Summer. The Cain series is all about Egyptian gods. Start with the Red Pyramid. Holly Black and Cassandra Clare write the Magisterium series. Start with the Iron Trial. Another series that skews younger is the Underland Chronicles by Suzanne Collins. Book 1 is Gregor the Overlander. Heather is looking for books similar to Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen. Try Softer by Ayundi Kolber might fit the bill. This title is written from a similar perspective with helpful exercises to deal with stress and anxiety. Just a disclaimer, I probably butchered many of those authors' names, and for that I apologize. So once again, if you are looking for a new book to read, you can comment on our Facebook thread, or you can also fill out a book match form. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Next, we have another one of our librarians, Mike May, who's going to tell us a little bit about our upcoming online book club and how you can get involved.
Hi everyone, this is Mike at Carnegie-Stout Library. I wanted to let you know that the CSPL online book club is currently reading The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. The discussion will start on Monday, May 18th at the CSPL online book club group, which is at the library's Facebook page. The ebook is always available in the library's Overdrive collections, and you can check that out using Overdrive on the website or the app or through the Libby app. Until then, here are some spoiler-free background notes about the book and author from agathachristie.com and various Wikipedia articles. The Mysterious Affair at Styles is a detective novel by British mystery writer Agatha Christie. Christie, who lived from 1890 to 1976, is thought to be the best-selling author of all time. Her 66 mystery novels and 14 short story collections have sold over 2 billion copies, and she is one of the world's most translated authors. Known as the Queen of Mystery, Christie won the first Mystery Writers of America Grand Master Award in 1955 and was voted Best Crime Writer by the Crime Writers Association in 2013. The Mysterious Affair at Styles was Christie's first published novel. Her sister Madge dared Christie to try to write a mystery that readers could not solve even though they had all of the same clues as the detective. Christie wrote the novel in 1916, but it was rejected by 6 publishers before it was finally released in the United States in 1920 and the UK in 1921. It was also serialized in 18 parts in the Times of London in 1920. When The Mysterious Affair at Styles was published in 1920, the New York Times Book Review said, "Though this may be the first published book of Miss Agatha Christie, she betrays the cunning of an old hand. You will be kept guessing at its solution and will most certainly never lay down this most entertaining book." Besides being Christie's first published novel, this was also the first appearance of the Belgian detective Hercule Poirot, who would become one of the most famous characters in mystery fiction. Hercule Poirot appeared in 33 novels, 2 plays, and more than 50 short stories published between 1920 and 1975. He was the only fictional character to have an obituary published on the front page of the New York Times. The character of Poirot was inspired by the Belgian refugees who settled in Christie's hometown of Torquay in Devon, England during World War I, where Christie worked at a hospital dispensary while writing her novel, a setting which also appears in the story. Christie was also influenced by the English novelist Wilkie Collins and by the popular Sherlock Holmes stories by Arthur Conan Doyle, with Poirot as the eccentric detective, his clueless friend Arthur Hastings as narrator, and a case that even Scotland Yard cannot solve. The Mysterious Affair at Styles is an early example of a closed-circle mystery which features a limited number of suspects who could have credibly committed a crime. The British country house was a classic setting of such mysteries in the 20s and 30s, an era known as the Golden Age of detective fiction. That's it. The ebook is always available in Overdrive and Libby with your City of Dubuque library card, and the discussion starts again on Monday, May 18th at the CSPL Online Book Club group at the library's Facebook page. Hope to see you there.
Thanks, Mike. So if you would like to join us for our online book discussion, please join the group on Facebook, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at yourlibrarian@dubuque.lib.ia.us. For our listener submissions that we have this week, we first have Don, who is our librarian Sarah's dad, contributing what he's been reading lately, and then Allie Hinga from the Telegraph Herald will tell us a little bit about what she's enjoyed.
Hi, my name is Don, and I read a book called The Patch by Chris Turner. He's a Canadian author, and I read sort of nonfiction books. And this is about the story of the Alberta tar sands oil production and the boomtown of Fort McHenry, Alberta. With the tar sands up in Canada, they were right near the surface. So instead of drilling for oil, they loaded it on big trucks and hauled it off to the refinery and improved it a little bit and then sent her off in a pipeline. Because Alberta's in the west and all the people in Canada are in the east, they had long pipelines, which include into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and across the Mackinac Straits to get to Canada. And they also had a line down the Midwest through Wisconsin to get to Chicago. The best part of the book for me was the history of oil from the time they first started doing the tar sands all the way up to 2015. And the oil sands were high carbon oil and extra dense, and it took extra refining. One of the other things that happened is Russia also has tar sands. Instead of digging like a big open pit and doing it that way, they drilled 2 wells close together down to where the tar sands, only they call it oil sands. One well went on the top and one well went on the bottom. And the well on the top, they filled with steam and chemicals, and the oil came out on the bottom. And this made it much easier and much improved the amount of oil that could be extracted. Unfortunately for Canada, this is called fracking, and it turned the oil shale in North Dakota to be a booming place, and it also improved oil extraction in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Oklahoma. So the Canadians really couldn't sell more oil because the United States was more sufficient in oil. And their other idea was because the U.S. has a rule they couldn't export United States oil, they were going to have a big Keystone XL pipeline down to Texas refineries and export the oil. But unfortunately for Canada, there's something called environmentalists. So the environmentalists and the farmers in Nebraska, the Indian tribes in the Dakotas were very against this. And after much consideration, and the US President Obama nixed the pipeline. Well, continuing politics, we had a new president, President Trump, and he said it was okay. But all the legal fights are still going on. And these stories of the Canadian oils still continue today. The latest thing is a complete lack of demand because of coronavirus. Russia and Saudi Arabia had a price war driving the price of oil way down. And even people who had contracts for oil had to pay money to get people to take it away. And on the news today, there is a fleet of super tankers heading to the United States from Saudi Arabia. And this oil is the ones that they had in the price war. So it's undercutting North Dakota. And the North Dakota senators are very upset and want President Trump to immediately slap some tariffs on it to stop the oil. So it's a very interesting book about the boomtown and the history of oil over the last 50 or 60 years.
Thanks again, Don. Next up, we have Allie Hinga.
Hi everyone, I'm Allie. I'm a reporter for the Telegraph Herald. I write about education, so all things K-12, public, private schools, colleges, and just anything really involving kids and young people. So I think appropriate to that, my read while I've been stuck at home a lot during the pandemic has been to reread the Harry Potter books. I do this every couple of years somehow. I always find myself back there, usually when I'm just feeling kind of tired and a little bit worn down. I think it just reminds me of when I'm reading it, it makes me think about a time in my life when things felt safe, when I was reading a book that I loved, when the biggest thing I had to worry about was the fact that I was ignoring my family during our vacation in Chicago to read Deathly Hallows. Sorry, family. It just reminds me of a time when it felt good to be in a book, and I feel like when I'm there and I'm reading it, my mind and my body really remember just the good feelings I associated with reading those books. So it's something that helps me and helps keep my mind off things and just something that makes me feel good and feel safe. I also subscribe to a surprising number of cooking magazines. I know that at least I get Food Network magazine, Taste of Home, and All Recipes, but maybe something else will show up in my mailbox that I've accidentally ordered. I don't know. They're just nice. I really like cooking food and thinking about food and just generally consuming food. I'm a big fan of that. And it's just nice to have something to look through and to read and to kind of dream up all the kinds of things I might want to make one day, and just these ideas and just kind of a way to connect maybe my reading with something about my life that I enjoy doing and being part of. So that's what I've been reading these days, just trying to read things that kind of keep me grounded and keep me moving forward and staying healthy. So hope everyone's doing well. Appreciate you all. Bye.
Thanks, Allie. Remember, if you would like to submit a short recording to us to be featured in a future episode of our podcast, just send an MP3 file or other audio file to yourlibrarian@dubuque.lib.ia.us. Last but certainly not least for this week's episode, we have a short preview of Amy's interview with Luke Vorwald. This will be featured as a full-length episode at a later date, but we wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of what you have to look forward to.
So I wanted to share something with everybody about you, Luke. So when we had our Cabin Fever mini-con, our special guest was Shauna Maguire. She's a fantasy science fiction author. She's extremely prolific, and she's a huge D&D player. So we asked Luke to DM a game with her, and then we had people enter a drawing to win the chance to play with her. And I have to say, I was sitting in the staff lounge while you were talking to Shauna about the game you came up for her, and I felt like you guys were talking in a totally foreign language about character development and which kind of characters you like to play. But it seemed like everybody had an amazing time. And then after the library closed, you all actually moved to the Holiday Inn and continued the game. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, how did you come up with your
I sure-
inspiration? I want to know about
Sure.
the story that you told.
Yeah. So, I sure hope everyone they seemed like they had a good time, which was
I think everybody had a great
obviously
time.
Yeah, good. I'm very happy. I think she even posted about it on Twitter or Instagram after the fact, and I was.
She did. We were very excited. So.
Yeah. So I guess my motivation I should even step back a little bit, but I was actually on a Skype call with one of my buddies, and me and him, we often talk nerd. We talk about books and Magic the Gathering, D&D. We were just on the chat because we haven't seen each other in a while, and I saw an email. I think it was from Sarah, and she. The title of the email was, "Would you like to DM a game for an award-winning author?" And I'm like, well, sounds promising. Let's crack this bad boy open. And I was reading it. I'm like, I'm not sure. I feel like I've heard this name before, Shauna Maguire. And my buddy Jordy's like, "Oh, dude, Shauna Maguire, she's awesome. My wife loves her. I love her. Blah blah blah. You got to get on this." And I'm like, well, even if you didn't, I do it for the library because I love those guys. But so then I think it was Sarah that I was chatting with. She gave me a link to a short story of hers, and it was called Dragonflies.
Yes.
Did you read that?
I did.
Okay. It was very cool, right up my alley. And the idea that I had for the game came from that short story. The conceit of that game is that the world had effectively been overflown with oxygen due to human trying to overcorrect, I believe was the kind of the conceit of it. And because of that, not only did plants kind of overgrow and become huge, but so did insects. And I really like this idea. I kind of got like a flash of people in like walking through tall grass and giant spiders attack them. That was kind of like the main seed that I had for this whole one-shot campaign. Eventually, it took a life of its own, and while I probably should have been like at work doing what I get paid to do, I started jotting down notes. And
Well, when inspiration comes, you have to write it down.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you forget it.
You won't squirrel on me. I trust. Yeah. But I spent a lot of time at work, kind of jotting down notes on what I wanted to do, and it eventually became a story where adventurers showed up at a roadside attraction where they get shrunk down a la Honey, I Shrunk the Kids into like a D&D sized miniature landscape. And they had to go into it and explore it. And then things quickly went south from there. And they had to figure out how to right the wrongs and do the whole D&D thing. So that's the basic overview of how I got it. I got it from that short story.
Right.
Then from that, I went on to reading her novel Middle Game, which I think was her most recent published novel.
It is. I think she just posted on Twitter something like it's probably her favorite novel that she's written to date. So
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, she's
and I got a signed copy, which was awesome.
Ooh, that's even better.
Yeah, she signed it for me there. I was very happy.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's great that if you're doing a role-playing game, you don't necessarily have to just follow the manuals that they send out. You can come up with your own stories just based on anything. Like you can take inspiration from, a short story, from a movie you saw, from, the motorcycle driving past your house while you're trying to do a podcast, that kind of stuff.
Ooh, I want to play in a biker gang D&D campaign. That'd be sweet, like a Mad Max thing. Sign me up.
Yeah, so we're going to have you write that, and then the next mini-con we have, then you can D&D that one.
That's fine. I only have 8 months, so that's
exactly.
All right.
You've got plenty of time.
Exactly.
Amy and Luke have a lot more to share with us, so we hope that you tune in to a full-length episode featuring their interview that will be released later this month. Well, there wasn't as much librarian rambling this week as usual. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode and that you will join us in the future for Check It Out, Carnegie-Stout Library's Adult Services podcast. Thanks again to Don and Allie for their reader and listener submissions. Thanks to Amy for telling us a little bit about Reader's Advisory and Mike for telling us about our book club. Again, we'll feature Luke in a full-length interview later on. And as always, thanks to Ben Eagle for recording and performing our podcast theme song. We hope you join us for our next episode of Check It Out.